Listen, what I'm about to tell you should have baseball fans everywhere absolutely losing their minds, but somehow it's flying completely under the radar. We're talking about a move that could reshape an entire franchise's future, and yet most people are treating it like just another offseason transaction. Stick with me here, because by the end of this, you are going to understand why this matters way more than anyone realizes. So here's what happened. The Toronto Blue Jays just announced that Don Mattingly, their bench coach for the past 3 seasons, won't be returning for 2026. Now, before you click away thinking this is just another coaching change, let me give you some context that changes everything. This isn't some random assistant coach we're talking about. This is Donnie Baseball, a guy who spent 14 years as a Yankees legend, managed the Dodgers and Marlins, and just helped orchestrate one of the most incredible turnarounds in recent baseball history. Think about where Toronto was just 15 months ago. Dead last in the AL East, 74 wins, an offense that ranked 23rd in all of baseball. Fast forward to this season, and they won 94 games, knocked off the Yankees in 4 games, survived a brutal 7 game series against Seattle, and pushed the defending champion Dodgers all the way to 11 innings in Game 7 of the World Series before falling just short. That's not luck. That's not accident. That's a complete organizational transformation. And Mattingly was right there in the middle of it. What makes this departure so fascinating is the timing and the circumstances. General Manager Ross Atkins came out and basically said Mattingly's impact was significant and lasting. The official line is that he wants to spend more time with family after decades of baseball's grueling schedule. And you know what? That's probably true, but T here is more to the story that nobody's really digging into Mattingly was at some meet and greet event at MLB's store in Manhattan recently, and he admitted something really interesting. He said he had a pretty good feeling before the season even started that it would be his last year in Toronto. Think about that for a second. This guy knew going into the season that he was probably done, and then proceeds to help guide this team on the ride of their lives all the way to Game 7 of the World Series. That's the kind of stuff that makes you wonder what was really going through his mind during those final moments. Here is what really gets me about this whole situation. Mattingly spent over 40 years in professional baseball. 40 years. As a player with the Yankees, he was a 6-time All-Star, won an MVP award, and was one of the most beloved players in franchise history. But he never made it to a World Series. Not once in 14 seasons wearing pinstripes. His closest shot came in 1995, his final year as a player when the Yankees lost in the division series. Then he becomes a manager. 5 years with the Dodgers, where he wins 3 division titles but can't get past the NLCS. 7 years in Miami, where he wins Manager of the Year in 2020 but never even makes the playoffs. This is a guy who's been chasing that World Series appearance his entire baseball life, and it finally happens at age 64 wearing a Toronto Blue Jays uniform. Not the Yankees, not the Dodgers, Toronto. And he gets. Within 2 outs of actually winning the whole thing, you spend 4 decades trying to reach the pinnacle of your profession. You finally get there. You are literally 2 outs away from the championship. And then it slips through your fingers in the most agonizing way possible. Bo Bichette homers in the 3rd to put Toronto up 3-0. You are cruising. Then the Dodgers tie it with 2 outs in the 9th. Then it goes to 11 innings. Then you lose at home. That kind of heartbreak changes people. It forces you to reassess everything. Now let's talk about what Mattingly actually meant to this team beyond just the win-loss record. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. just signed a 14-year, $500 million extension in April and then proceeded to have an absolutely ridiculous postseason. Became the franchise's all-time playoff home run leader. When you are a young superstar dealing with that kind of pressure and those kinds of expectations, having a guy like Mattingly in your corner matters. He lived through all of it as a player. He knows what it's like to be the face of a franchise, to deal with New York media, to handle October pressure. Bo Bichette battled back from injury to return for the World Series, despite clearly not being 100%. Shane Bieber, who they acquired at the trade deadline coming off Tommy John surgery, pitched with confidence throughout the playoffs. Trey Yazavage went from single A to starting Game 1 of the World Series in 7 months. That's an insane trajectory, and you don't successfully navigate that kind of rapid ascension without coaches who know how to handle young talent in pressure situations. The Blue Jays moved Mattingly from offensive coordinator back to traditional bench coach before this season. And something just clicked. The whole vibe around that team changed. They started winning games they had no business winning. They started believing they belonged on the biggest stage. That's culture. That's leadership. That's the intangible stuff that doesn't show up in spreadsheets but makes all the difference when it matters most. So now Toronto is scaring down a crucial offseason with some massive questions to answer. Bo Bichette is entering free agency. Championship expectations are at an all-time high because they proved they can compete with anybody. And they've got this painful memory of being 2 outs away seared into everyone's consciousness. Losing someone with Mattingly's experience and institutional knowledge at this exact moment makes everything more complicated. Manager John Schneider already had his contract picked up for 2026, so now he needs to find someone who can fill this void. They need somebody who commands immediate respect, who understands what this group just went through emotionally, and who can maintain the chemistry they built while navigating potential roster changes. That's not easy to find. What's interesting is that Mattingly isn't completely retiring from baseball. He shot down the Colorado Rockies' managerial opening, calling it a rebuilding situation better suited for a younger coach with more energy. When people asked about potential interest from the Yankees, he deflected and said he wants to relax and see what feels right after processing everything. Translation, he's leaving the door open, but needs time to figure out if he wants to keep grinding. You are seeing more and more coaches prioritize work-life balance, even when success is right there in front of them. And honestly, Mattingly's earned that right. At 64, after finally experiencing the World Series and coming that close to winning it all, maybe the emotional toll of falling short helped crystallize what really matters sometimes. You need that kind of moment to realize what you are willing to sacrifice and what you are not. The legacy Mattingly leaves in Toronto is complicated, but ultimately really special. He helped bring that franchise back to the World Series for the first time since Joe Carter's legendary walk-off in 1993. He mentored the next generation of Blue Jays stars. He gave an entire country some of the most thrilling baseball moments in years. Yeah, they didn't win it all, but nobody can take away what they accomplished or the journey they went on together. The real question now is whether Toronto can maintain this momentum without him. Do they have the right voices in that clubhouse to push through the disappointment and get back to that level? Can they find someone who brings the same gravitas and experience? And what does Mattingly's next chapter look like? Those are the storylines we'll be following all offseason. What we know for sure is that baseball just lost one of its great ambassadors from an everyday coaching role, and Toronto lost a piece of what made their 2025 season so magical. Time will tell if they can recapture that magic without Donnie Baseball in the dugout.